We see a lot of variance when it comes to picky eating in our practices. What is one of the more common categories that you say you come across in your practice?
I like to say normal picky eaters, especially when it's around the ages of 2, 3, 4. Little ones learning that they are essentially in charge of their little bodies and they can pick and choose what they would like. Reassuring parents of what's normal and what's not normal. And I think that's why this video is going to be helpful to parents, because there is a degree of normalness when it comes to picky eating. We'll eventually outgrow it as they get a bit older. And then we get our more sort of problem feeders, and that's the ones where we are concerned in terms of their degree of pickiness.
Let you know that they have a say in what they eat. That's quite normal behavior, and the way you support them will actually determine how quickly they get through that very normal stage. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Baby and our picky eating series. I hope you're enjoying it, and I know that at the moment we're just laying the foundation and we haven't quite got to the solution and the practical elements, but we all feel, Sammy, my co-host, who's joined me today, which is awesome, and Dr. Jenny Rose, who was on last week, we really feel that laying a good foundation is a really helpful way for you guys to understand when we explain the practical solutions and how you can help your little picky eater. So on that note, we are going to talk today about different categories of picky eating. And Sammy, we see a lot of variance when it comes to picky eating in our practices. What is one of the more common categories that you say you come across in your practice?
So the most common, Kath, is your, I like to say, normal picky eaters, especially when it's around the ages of 2, 3, 4. It's just a type of developmental pickiness that comes with a bit of autonomy. So, little ones learning that they are essentially in charge of their little bodies and they can pick and choose what they would like. So, a lot of my sort of caseload is also just reassuring parents of what's normal and what's not normal. And I think that's why this video is going to be helpful to parents, because there is a degree of normalness when it comes to picky eating, and generally these little people, will eventually outgrow it as they get a bit older. And obviously, if mom and dad just know how to support them through this, and then we get our more sort of problem feeders, and that's the ones where we are, concerned in terms of their degree of pickiness, where they may be excluding certain food groups, whereas our normal developmental picky eaters are generally eating all the food groups. And I know this is something that you are very aware of and look out for, Kath, in your clinical practices. Are they having still a little bit of something from each food group, where our sort of more problem picky eaters are the ones that have have dropped food groups and they're only eating maybe 2 food groups, and that's kind of where they're sitting, or they are actually just eating less and less and less, and we see their food repertoire getting less and less and less. So those are the two ones that I typically see. Kath, I don't know which ones are more common in your practice.
Yeah, I think it's very similar. I think, the ones that, we both feel very strongly that we need to take both seriously. Obviously, the one is more a potential nutritional emergency where they drop in a whole food group, or they haven't eaten from a whole food group for a while because they lose in a whole bunch of nutrition. So maybe they're not eating any protein at all. So your more common picky eater, which, like you say, is a developmental stage picky eater, where they will maybe restrict the amount of veggies they eat and restrict the amount of fruit they eat, or they will only eat fruit and they won't eat veggies, but they're still eating from the food color group, I call it. Or they will only eat one type of protein, or protein done in one type of way, and they will only eat a few of the starch, and then what I find with that group, given a calm space and given good boundaries, which we're going to talk more about going forward, they generally will pick up new foods and other foods along the way. And I think those are the ones we don't really worry about. They might remove some foods, but they also will then be picking up some new foods and some tastes. Whereas, as you mentioned, with our real problem and concern in picky eaters are the ones that are cutting out a whole food group, and then their food repertoire is getting less and less and less. And those kids are at high risk for nutritional deficiencies. And I think that can be also a real big concern. In your experience and in your practice, do you come across kids that are become quite fearful of new foods, but they will kind of just sit with the foods that they know? Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the sort of classic behaviors of our picky eaters is that they are fine with their safe foods, but any new type of foods, there's that deep fear and anxiety around food and for especially new foods. And this could be for a variety of reasons. You know, again, we'll go into more detail, but it could be due to sort of oral motor fallout. It could be due to a sensory profile. It could be due to their personality, which I know you and Jenny have spoken about. But, they could be for a variety of reasons. But I find a lot of the time the difficulties that these picky eaters have is hugely fear-based. And so that's a lot of what we're working with is trying to reverse that fear or help them gain trust in food and trying new foods. And also in terms of, they're definitely not going to like all the foods, but to know that that's okay and it's a safe space. And I like that you mentioned that, Kath, is that often the developmental picky eaters just need that safe, supportive space, and they'll flourish with that. And each child, you have to kind of tap into what works for them and what they find helpful in terms of addressing their picky eater, because no single picky eater is the same. We see common sort of behaviors and trends, but it's just also knowing how to support the picky eater and reduce that fear around eating.
Yeah, so I think we've touched probably on your top three, and we can obviously unpack them all going forward. So just to kind of recap for moms today and dads out there listening, if you've got a picky eater that, as Sammy mentioned, is just eating from all the food groups, but starting to assert their little will, kind of make their autonomy known, let you know that they have a say in what they eat, that's quite normal behavior. And the way you support them will actually determine how quickly they get through that very normal stage. Then we get our picky eater who's cutting out food groups and has potential to become nutritionally deficient. And there's a very important way to support those little ones. But if that is your child, please stay tuned, because we're definitely going to be following on from this with solutions on how to manage that. And then your child who has what we call a food neophobia, so that's that fear of a new food, and how to expose them to new foods and how to get them onto new foods, because often parents are worried that your child will get bored of just this kind of very few food diets or just the safe foods, as Sammy mentioned. And there's also some real good techniques that we can just help you with when going forward with that. So yeah, thanks so much, Sammy. That was so helpful. And those are our top three main categories, and we will unpack that more going forward. And until next time, moms and dads, remember that you are the best parent for your child, and you definitely will find ways that you can help even the pickiest eater.